So welcome everybody. It's Monday, May 15th or Tuesday, May 16th. This is the Open-Hearted Practice Group, usually with Jim and Jory. Today, I'm Jim Mansky and I'm flying solo. And I'm really glad to be here with you. We've had some little computer drama, but we worked it out. Folks have just come back from their small groups where they were talking about a little self-connection exercise that we did. So I'd love to hear from a few people about what that exercise was like for you. And just so people on the call, on the recording may not know what I'm talking about, let me just explain really quickly, in case it's an exercise that you'd like to try again later. The idea is that you just take about 5 minutes and you just be with yourself. And then you just notice what's going on in your body. And you're going to be paying attention to 4 main things: sensations, emotions, feelings, and thoughts. So you just report what you notice. You might notice a sensation come up, then a thought about the sensation that might trigger an emotion, and so forth. So, and then I can kind of explain what I mean by these 4 terms after we hear from a few people. So Purva.
Oh, hello, Jim. Hello,
Hi.
everybody. Good morning from India. So it was very interesting that I wanted to check. Okay. So we were Isabel and Janet in my group. And it was beautiful to get these pearls of wisdom. So Janet, Isabel mentioned something that she was reading about, or she attended something about fairness, that there is no fairness in the world. As in that word, Isabel, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I'm quoting it right, but what I did understand is that if you can let go of this thought of, am I fair over you, or are you fair? Then this whole conflict will not exist, is what was huge for me. And then Janet mentioned a beautiful thing, that she has a dog and she has been teaching him how to downstay so that she can go into stores and everything with ease. And then she mentioned that I sometimes have started to tell myself that downstay. And I totally told her, I need to write this down. The minute I say downstay to myself, I will totally calm down, sit down, not react, and think about responding. So it was just like 2 aha or wow moments for me with both the sharings from my team people from the breakout room. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. And thanks for sharing a little bit about your experience. I always wonder what goes on in these small groups because there's no way for me to hear. And so I'd love to hear these reports. So I really appreciate you telling me about what happened for you. And someone else be willing to share what your small group was like. Help me to connect with what it's like for you. Go ahead, Abby.
Hi, good morning. Again from India. I was in a room with one person and we just had this amazing, nourishing quality. And there was this ease and just like spaciousness. And I usually don't turn on my video, and and today I just wanted to follow the flow, go into a breakout room, and I just feel so grateful that I did show up, and I'm also appreciating that I joined the call and already had 20 minutes of self-connection before going into the breakout room. And then it was just so nourishing because it led on to this conversation. We still had 4 minutes left. And then there was this appreciation for actually meeting you, Jim and Jory, in 2017 in Pune. And it was just so sweet. to remember that, actually we have met. So yeah, I'm grateful for showing up in many ways today and also raising my hand to share.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. It's nice to remember that we've met. Nice to know that we had this connection through the India Convention. Because as you all know, this group has an intimate connection to the India Convention because you all helped make it happen this year. And because of your generosity, about more than 20 people were able to attend that event because of scholarships that you were able to provide with your gifts. So it's fun to have you share that, Abby. Am I saying your name right, Abby? Yeah, okay, great. Somebody else like to share? What's it like for you to just take a few minutes and be with yourself like that, and then to be with other people to talk about it? Yeah, Sarah Joy.
Yeah, hi, Jim. Thank you. I thought it was very nourishing, and I really felt it was relaxing, both the before and the conversations that I had. One of the things I noticed was that I would love to take more breaks like that during the day and find more 5-minute times. And that reminded me that I had purchased a mindfulness bell, which has a beautiful Tibetan bowl sound. And the first time I used it about a year ago, it would ding every hour. And I could choose what I wanted to do in that, like stretch or walk to the window or go outside or meditate or whatever. And then I think something happened and I didn't know how to turn it back on. But this is like a reminder to do it on my own. I figured out how to get it back on, and now I'm doing it every 2 hours. And I realized I'm not doing this though. I could do this. I could look inside, and so that's one thing that another group member resonated with as well. Something that we could both do more of. That's could help us stay connected with ourselves. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thanks for sharing your experience. Glad to hear that it supported you in setting an aspiration to do it more often, to take these little 5-minute breaks, or even a 30-second break can make a difference, and you can find creative ways to build in these little self-connection breaks. If you're in a car and happen to be driving and the light turns red, you can do a little red light meditation there while you wait for the light to change, rather than if you're feeling impatient, then you just notice it and name it and be present for yourself. And there can be other little opportunities throughout the day to find this time to rest your brain and reconnect with your heart. Sangeeta?
Yeah, good morning, Jim and everybody. So I just wanted to express my gratitude to Juliana and David, who held space for me in the group, in the small room, and that when I shared that I had heard some disturbing news about 4 days back regarding my child, and Jaya, my empathy buddy, has been holding me in that space. But when you asked us to connect with ourselves, towards the end, I did realize this huge lump of tears wanting to still burst out, and I hadn't slept the night. I've been having a lot of sleepless nights over this. So I realized that a lot of processing still needs to be done there, and a lot of more empathy needed. Thank you, Juliana. She held me in that space and even sent out light to my child. We were just in that silence, in that moment. She had to forego her turn in and just be there for me. David, I really thank you for again just making me feel that I'm not alone, and that each of us carries some pain in some form or the other. And in that sense, that just makes me feel that everything is okay. We're all in this together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sangeeta. David, let's finish with Rob.
Okay, hello, everybody. Thank you again for the nice group, and my fellow traveler, Sangeeta, just mentioned that, yeah, we were in a group, and what resulted from the period of silence and meditation and reflection was just brought me to a place where I could reflect on events that took place in the prior week up until tonight that presented me with the opportunity to practice NVC skills I've learned, such as direct communication regarding my needs aren't being met, making requests as opposed to demands, and recognizing my needs and expressing those clearly. When the opportunities were presented, I didn't always take 100% of them. Sometimes I neglected it and reverted to old behaviors and what I call reactions, as opposed to just real reflective and responsive sort of approach that involves, accessing my spirit and intuition and super consciousness sort of areas, as opposed to just reacting, dang it, I need something right now and you're upsetting my apple cart, so I'm going to upset yours type of thing. So I'm blessed in a huge way, because the two fellow travelers with whom I had a chance to interact, I was really blessed by their feedback and perspectives. And just an interesting aspect of that is two of us we had the same issue going on during the week. So it's great to have that experience, strength, and hope shared. So thank you for allowing me to share tonight.
Thank you, David. I'm glad you're here. And Rob.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm feeling more introverted than I like. And so I guess it's a strategy just to, I don't know if I really have anything of value to say. The only response I had in the group, sort of, there was some good skills there. And also when one woman talked about having a heart attack, imagine, I had that this week as too, about imagining, I don't know. I hope it was imagining. But anyways, I'm just saying something here in the hope of a little more self-connection and connection with the group.
Thank you. And how did it work for you? What do you notice right now?
I felt acceptance there. I felt a little more, just getting it out. I'm always managing my daughter I live with, who's got some real problems, and she missed her therapist tonight, and it's like, oh my God, she didn't get out of bed, and it's like, yeah. Anyways, so that's always on my plate, and there's maybe some screaming that wants to go on or something. So I am feeling introverted about things. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing,
Thanks
Rob.
for the exploration. Yeah.
You're welcome. Okay. Anybody else burning to say anything before we kind of dive into the lesson for today? Anybody been waiting? Okay. So let me share my screen with you briefly. So we've been building the foundation to deepen connection through self-empathy. Self-empathy just refers to when we use nonviolent communication and we direct our consciousness towards our own experience. And that's in contrast to empathy, when we direct our awareness and our consciousness towards another person's experience. And then honesty is when we share our experience with somebody else using some sort of communication. So we've been kind of, the way that I look at it is that self-empathy is a foundation for being able to use anything else in nonviolent communication effectively. Because if we don't know what's going on in ourselves, I don't see how we could have the resources to be present for someone else. Which is why I'm emphasizing this during the month of May. It's self-empathy month. Maybe someday it'll be a national holiday and we'll all take a whole month to really do some self-reflection and deepen our own connection with ourselves. And there's three main ways that we can support ourselves with self-empathy. Number one is noticing. Noticing is engaging our natural ability as human beings to observe. Human beings are designed to observe the environment. And so we're awakening the skills that we were born with, to use our eyes, our ears, and our other senses to hear, smell, taste, touch, and see the world around us. And so that's one thing that we can notice is the world. We can also direct this energy of awareness towards what's going on within our body or within our mind. So when we're noticing what's going on in our body, in nonviolent communication, we call that feelings. And when we're noticing what's going on in our mind, we call that thoughts. So you can notice any of those three things, and it can support you in becoming even more present than you already are. And by naming it, by naming whatever your experience is in the moment, you magnify the power of observation. This is a bit of a mystery to me, but the neuroscience backs up the claim that when we name our experience, it supports us in what neuroscientists call self-regulation. It supports us in being able to calm the part of our nervous system that focuses on fight or flight, and instead to activate the part of our nervous system that supports presence and being able to stay in contact with this big, huge part of the front part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, so that we can live a life that's much more and likely to get our needs met with less cost. So there's something very magical about naming. Even if you don't have a name for the exact feeling or something that you're having, if you just say, oh, I'm feeling, and then you just make up some kind of new word in the moment that describes that feeling for you, that's perfectly fine. And then the third part of self-empathy is allowing. Allowing, of course, just means to make it okay, to make whatever you're noticing and naming, to accept it, to stop resisting it, and then to see what happens next. And inevitably, what happens next is something's going to change, because what we're focusing on, what we're noticing is sensations, emotions, feelings, and thoughts. And so we'll just do a little experiment here for just 30 seconds. Just bring your awareness to sensations in your body. So over a 30-second period of time, you're likely to notice that the experience of sensations changes. You might become aware of different sensations, or the intensity of a sensation may change, and so forth. So that's one thing that you can notice about sensations. Same is true of emotions. So emotions, they tend to have a little bit more of a sense for me of meaning. So for example, if someone pokes me with a stick, like, we're out in the forest and somebody's trying to get my attention, and so they poke me with a stick, I'm going to experience that as a sensation first, and then I turn around to see who's poking me, and I find out that it's my kid or my wife. Then I'm going to have a certain emotion come up based on how I interpret what that sensation means. Maybe I'm just relieved they finally caught up with us on the trail, or maybe I get curious. I wonder what they want my attention for. So these are examples of different emotions that we can have. And then feelings is the term that Marshall used, Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of nonviolent communication. Marshall bundled sensations and emotions into one word for ease: feelings. Feelings is what's going on in our body. And he makes a distinction between feelings, which are of the body, and thoughts, which are of the mind. And so just see if you can, we'll again do a 30-second experiment, and see if you can notice the difference in your own experience between what's going on in your body with feelings and what's going on in your mind with thoughts. I raised my own hand. So what did you notice? Anybody want to share anything about those little experiments with paying attention to sensations, thoughts, emotions, feelings? Yeah, Shem.
Hey, Jim. Yeah, I just noticed I have some confusion. Not sure. I try to feel the feelings and the emotions difference. And some feelings feel like the thoughts, some feelings like is emotions. So at least a little bit confused, want to have some clarity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you'd like to have some clarity on what the distinction is between an emotion and a sensation, or between a feeling and a thought, or what's the distinction that you're wanting clarity about?
Yes, thank you. Between emotions and feeling.
Between emotions and feelings. Okay, I would use, in most cases, you can say either word and you're pointing to the same experience. The reason that I often talk about it as two distinct things is because it's because we don't have very much vocabulary in our culture, at least in the United States. We don't have a whole lot of vocabulary for emotions. We feel happy, sad, glad, mad, maybe hurt or scared. We have just very, very few words to describe emotions. Even though there's hundreds of words that can describe emotions. We just don't have a whole lot of vocabulary. But sensations are descriptive. We can describe whether something feels sharp or dull, hot or cool. We just have more vocabulary. So often when people are first learning to get in touch with their body, it's easier, in my experience, to talk about sensations. But any word that you want to use is fine. Does that help, Sean?
Yeah, I understand body sensation between what's the difference between body sensation and emotions. My question is between emotions and feelings.
Yeah, I would say that in NVC, generally speaking, when people talk about feelings, it's emotions and or sensations. So feelings is just kind of a catch-all for both emotions and sensations. The most important distinction is between feelings and thoughts, because we get that confused. At least I get that really confused, especially because of the way language works. I can say something like, I feel like people should pay more attention to how they drive in the car. And so I'm using the word feel, but I'm really describing a thought. It's what I think. And so it'd be more accurate for me to say, I think that people, should pay more attention to their driving. And the reason that it's important is because human beings seem to have an easier time connecting at the level of feelings than at thoughts, because feelings are much more, we have them in common. Everybody feels sad. Everybody feels hurt. The way we feel might be a little bit different, but if I use the word hurt or sad or angry, you probably know what I mean, and you can kind of say, oh, so that's what it's like to be you right now. But if I tell you what I think, like I think that such and such a political party has a really good idea, then that's likely to set up for you either agreement or disagreement. It's going to trigger your thoughts. And so then we can then we enter into what could be conflict rather than connections. Nothing wrong with conflict, but if what I'm wanting is connection first, then talking about what's going on at the level of feelings and needs seems to support connection, at least in the early stages of practice, or in terms, even early stages of a particular connection. If we stay focused on feelings and needs, that usually supports connection. Is that helpful, Joanne?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. So I want clarity. Do you mind I reflect what I understand from your
Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. What you just explained is between the feelings and the thoughts, the difference. Feelings, some people, most time we probably mixed between feelings and the thoughts. Like even though we said I feel something, but actually after I feel is really kind of an evaluation or judgment. So in a second, I understand that the emotions actually including feelings and the body sensation.
Yeah, I like your reflection. Thanks, Shwen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jean.
Yeah. And the point of it all, let me just share the screen again, and then I'll go to the other four hands. But I just want to, why, so what? I mean, that's the question that might be arising for some of you. And so why do we want to pay attention to any of these three things? Because they're all pointers. Every single one of these words is a pointer to what's deeply important to us, which in NVC we call needs. So sensations in our body point us towards needs. Emotions in our body point us towards needs. Feelings in our body point us towards needs. And thoughts can even be quite connecting when we understand that they're related directly to needs. And so, and when we think about needs, when we connect to needs, this is the place where a deepening of connection can really happen. Because as far as we know at this point, and research is ongoing about needs, of course, and we might learn something different, but it seems that human beings have a universal experience of needs. That everybody needs play, everybody needs nurturance, everybody needs freedom, everybody needs community and belonging and so forth. The words we use to describe those needs might be different, but the needs are something that we have in common. So if they're in common, that means that it's the avenue for connection. If I get connected to your needs and you get connected to my needs, then we're more deeply connected. We've deepened our connection. So that's the point of it all. So let's go now to Jeffrey.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak here. My first experience with checking out my sensations and naming them aloud was only pain in my body. I could only isolate, tension here, pain there. And in the second experience, I was able to say, oh, there's pain in my hip. Then I had the sensation of gas. I'm not making a joke. I'm just saying like, oh, I have gas. Oh, my body feels a little crooked, and I realized that itchy or cold, might be other sensations that I could have. And I'm grateful for the thought of learning to practice vocalizing them, what's going on inside of me. And then right away a thought came, and I have no judgment towards the thought, but it was, is this way of thinking trustworthy? And I was putting myself out there, seeing myself questioning, like, can I accept what is this okay? And all that. So I just wanted to share my experience.
I really appreciate that vulnerability, Jeff. I really do. And Jeff's experience matches my own, that I might, because of the way our brains are designed and the habits that we have, we tend to notice what's wrong or what's painful first. But the longer we stick with an exercise like this, the more other possibilities begin to open up. Yen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So in the earlier exercise, I had a lot of trouble getting to feelings. I found that my mind it just goes to thoughts nonstop, and even thinking of getting to a feeling is a thought. So that I just wanted to express and share that difficulty that I had. When you just shared that feelings and needs are far more universal, it made me very sad, sad and inspired at the same time, because I gravitate towards thoughts a lot more than feelings. I have a lot of trouble accessing feelings. So I'm kind of sad that my preferred mode of being, which is thoughts, is not the common one. And I'm sort of grieving for all the people that I missed connecting on at the level of feelings and needs. However, it's inspiring because at this stage, I'm just at the inflection point where I can redirect all my energy towards, or redirect most of it towards, feelings and needs. And it's wonderful to know that that is the path forward towards being able to connect to people in a way that I've struggled with for most of my life. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm really catching your celebration, Yen, really catching the celebration. And I just want to highlight that, that it's a common experience to not be able to be, at least because of the way we've all been educated, it's easier to connect with thoughts than it is to the body. Often we've been disconnected from our body from a very young age. We've been disconnected from our needs from a very young age. Imagine a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old being put into a kindergarten class or a preschool class, and their life suddenly changes from having this opportunity to play outside and to just do whatever they want whenever they want. And then they suddenly get into a system where now we're going to sit down for 50 minutes at a time, and we're going to do some kind of an activity. No matter what your feelings and needs are about it, you're going to be doing this. And so that has the effect of disconnecting us from our feelings, because our feelings don't matter anymore. Why should we pay attention? I really have this urge to go play. But we're told, no, right now it's time to sit. So we're told from authority that our feelings don't matter. What matters is what authority says we should do. And so that has this tendency then to disconnect us from our feelings. And so a lot of what NVC is doing and other mindfulness practices is to helping us to reconnect to a more natural state of being connected to feelings and needs. And then we can start using thoughts as tools to help us to navigate life. So thanks, Yen, for bringing that up. Tanya, and then we'll finish with Carolyn.
So a couple of things. One is our feelings, our emotions, our thoughts, all of this is processed in the brain. We know that, I've had recent experience with paralysis, so I can say for a fact that brains run the show. But the localization of our sensations in our body, I think you said this a few times, but I think it's so important that locating our sensations and being able to label them either as a pure sensation or an emotion or feeling helps ground us in the present, and it'll cut the trauma elicitation circuit. It helps to cut that. Everything that Marshall teaches us, when you look at it, he doesn't speak from a trauma-informed place. But if you have some experience with trauma, maybe you took a class from Sarah Payton, that ought to be enough. You start seeing how what he's talking about is bringing us into the present and cutting that cycle of automatic behavior that comes from our traumatic experiences. And also this practice that you've been doing today, they're really important to cut through the cloud of numbness and inattention that we've absorbed. I mean, you named one form of oppression, going to kindergarten or first grade, but we are living an oppressive, every single one of us, it doesn't matter what country we are in, there is oppression going on. And one of the ways we start our lives is being made to conform without explanation. And we start developing this cloud of numbness. And all of these things are cutting through that and bringing us into awareness. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I'm very grateful for you naming that another big influence on our access to our body is what might have happened to us that was experienced as traumatic. And that NVC is a step in the direction of opening ourselves to healing. And we might need help with that. We really might need to have a skilled empathic professional guide us through that healing process, someone who is trauma informed. And so it's great to ask lots of questions before getting involved with any kind of a healing practitioner and making sure that they understand trauma, and especially if you have a trauma history. And even if you don't think you have a trauma history, you might discover something about yourself when you start doing this kind of work, because you start unpeeling these layers that are within us. So creating a community of support also seems really, really important. Carolyn.
Yeah. Sitting here muted. So my husband and I did some NVC clearing today, NVC practice rather, I mean. So I came to this class. I realized when you started to do the self-empathy, self-connection, that I felt very calm, and I couldn't identify it, but later I did, sort of like I was empty in a good way. And so then when you were talking just before we started to hear from other people, and we were, what feelings and thoughts we were having. And the feelings is pretty easy to feel. Basically, I feel calm and good. And but then I thought, now what thoughts am I having? And my answer was nothing. And so when I had nothing, and I thought, it seems like it's just nothing. And so I thought, oh, that doesn't sound very good. And so then right away I was like, oh dear, what's going on here? Start worrying. Oh, I don't have any thoughts. But actually, it's very delightful to not to actually feel in the moment that I didn't have any thoughts, certainly nothing negative or disturbing. And so, yeah, so doing NVC, Jay and myself, we just kind of worked through it, thinking, sort of asking each other, what could we do? What would we like to do? And little by little, we arrived in a place where we got some very good understandings. And that was our first time ever doing NVC. So I wanted to report that to you, Jim.
How exciting and how courageous to have a conversation that really matters and to be willing to try it and see what happens. And I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And I hope it's the first of many, many hundreds and thousands of deeply connecting conversations. And as for these moments of silence, yeah, they're precious. There's this other part of the brain called the default mode network. And as soon as you stop focusing on something, the default mode network, the reason they call it default is because it's what kicks in. And that's the source of a lot of our thinking. And it's problem solving, it's creativity, it's worry, and all these things are going on. And so that's why I think NVC can be helpful, this self-empathy technique, because we can start noticing what are the thoughts that are going on in our brain, and then we can start to do something about it. So we notice that we're worried. Like the other night, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and because I had been in conflict with a dear one, and I was chewing over this conflict, right? And I couldn't fall back asleep. And finally, I did a little self-empathy, and I thought, okay, so what would be most helpful right now? And so first I just kind of noticed that I was agitated. I'm laying in bed. I'm frustrated. I can't fall back asleep. I'm starting to activate my thinking that, oh, this means tomorrow's going to be a hard day. And I think it's going to be Mother's Day. And am I going to blah, 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 it's all this thinking. So I noticed that I was thinking, and I connected the feelings to the needs, the thoughts to the needs. Okay, I'm agitated. And I'm needing some peace and calmness, and I'm not finding it in bed. And so what might help? That becomes that's the request part of NVC. What might help? And then it'll just wait. And I heard a little an encouragement, like a request. Why don't you get up for 15 minutes and go sit with the cat and read? Well, this doesn't make any sense to my brain. Get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go read. But I did it. And after 15 or 20 minutes of petting the cat and reading, I went back to bed and I was asleep in 15 seconds. And so I think that we can follow our feelings or our thoughts to our needs and come up with a request and then move into life and see what happens next. So that's what we're working on here. And Susan, I saw that you had your hand up and then you put it down, probably because you heard me say, we'll finish with Carolyn or something like that. But I want to make sure that if there's something on your mind, we make room for it. So please go ahead.
Thank you. Well, my experience simply was that as I was paying attention to my thoughts and my body and going back and forth, that my thoughts were affecting my body. So that was quite interesting and I can't remember the exact sequence, but I have a lot of tension in my upper back, and I noticed that. And then I went down into my butt, and I was feeling that on my chair. And as I did that, then the thought arose, oh, my body feels better now. And there was this beautiful conversation between the mind and the body, bringing it all together. It was very lovely.
Oh, I'm so glad you shared it. I'm really glad. Thank you. And Robin, then we'll do a practice.
Yeah, I just want to, I put up a bunch in the chat. There's finally something that I read online that I don't know if this makes sense to you, Jim, but well, with emotions, they can be a subconscious, whatever, but when you feel them and then name them. So, because sometimes emotions can be repressed. So anyways, that made sense to me. Just emotion, feeling, naming, and then acting on the information, I guess, looking at your needs and that type of thing.
Yeah, yeah. All makes sense to me. You might even consider, adding observing before emotion, because there's something usually that goes on in the world or in our mind that we're observing that seems to stimulate our feelings. And so that's usually the way we at least we in the West, I don't know how it is in Asia, but the way that I was raised, we love it when things are linear. First this, then that, then this, then that. So first you have an observation, then you have a feeling, and then you have a need, then you have a request. And that just kind of helps me to learn. The longer I do NVC, I see that all four of these things are constantly happening. And it's much more nonlinear. But when you're learning, it's so helpful to notice, name, allow, and then request. That would be how I would say it. And so what you have there in the chat aligns pretty closely with my understanding, Rob. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's do a little practice. And you've probably seen me at some point during our adventures here, or maybe some other NVC trainer put these ears on, right? And these are jackal ears. And jackal is the symbol that Marshall chose to point to life alienating thinking. So Marshall made a distinction between life enriching thinking and life alienating thinking. So an example of a life enriching thought is I feel excited because I have a sense of enjoyment because I love sharing NVC with you guys on Mondays. That's a life enriching thought. And but a life alienating thought would be something like, there's 40 people here. How come there aren't 80 people here? People should come to NVC classes, especially ones that are offered for free or something like that. So that's life alienated because come from some kind of thinking that people should do something differently than what they're doing. And so the jackal ears are a symbol of moral judgment, of right, wrong thinking, of pointing out who deserves what, of blame or criticism. And so there's nothing wrong with any of that kind of thinking. It's just suffering. It's painful to think like that. And so if we're going to practice what we preach, we're going to start by noticing that. And so in a moment, I'll be quiet and you'll get a chance to just notice your thinking. And you'll notice a mixture, I'm guessing, of quietness plus life affirming thoughts, like maybe some gratitudes. I'm enjoying what we're learning today. I love being in community. I'm curious about what's going to happen next. Those would be life affirming thoughts. And you might have some judgments. Jim's been talking too much. I want to get more practice. I want to go back to the small groups. We should have more balance here. Those kinds of thoughts. So you're probably going to have a mixture of all three of those things. But the idea is that we're going to spend 5 minutes with you first, just noticing what's going on in your mind and then writing it down. You don't have to share this with anybody, but you just, as Marshall called it, enjoying the jackal show. So just write down whatever thoughts come to mind, whether they're life affirming or life alienating, it doesn't matter. And they're totally private. You won't have to share it with anybody. Does anybody, who would be willing to just share what the suggestion is in terms of what you'll be doing for the next 5 minutes? Would someone reflect back what you heard as the instruction?
Yeah, Jim, I'll have a go.
Thanks, Tanya.
So I'm hearing, are you saying that for the next 5 minutes, you'd like us to notice and observe our thoughts and just write down all the jackal thoughts that pass through our mind without filtering them, just write it down?
Exactly. And there might even be mixed in giraffe thoughts in there as well, but just write down what any thoughts that you have over the next 5 minutes. Thank you very much for reflecting it, Tanya. All right, I'm going to start the timer now, and I'll let you know when 5 minutes is up. About 30 more seconds. And when you finish writing the sentence that you're writing now, just put your pen down or rest your hands. And when you're finished, just look around the room for a moment. Orient yourself to your environment. And then consider what you wrote on your paper. And the idea is we're going to do some translation work. So we're going to be translating from jackal, which is this language of moral judgment that we were talking about. We're just going to do some quick translation work from jackal into giraffe. So everybody's going to get a chance to put on your own giraffe ears. And the way you do the translation is you look at each sentence that you wrote down, and then you say it to yourself again, and notice how you feel when you talk to yourself that way. So for example, if I have a thought, my neighbor is constantly junking up the neighborhood with old cars, and he shouldn't do that. So when I talk to myself that way, I feel separate from my neighbor. I feel angry. I feel helpless. Yeah, angry and helpless and separate. So that's the first step, is noticing and naming your feelings. And then to connect your feelings to your needs. So I'm feeling angry and helpless because what? Because what's important to me? So beauty is important to me. Harmony. Yeah. Beauty, harmony, cooperation. Yeah. So I finished translating that first jackal sentence. So I go from my neighbor should blah, 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 quack, quack, to I feel because I need. That's the essence of the translation. We go, a language of moral judgment is usually pointed outward, although we can judge ourselves, obviously. But it's like this voice of blame, usually externally focused, sometimes internally focused. And we shift it to I feel, whatever the emotion is, or the feeling, or the sensation. I feel because I need. So write that down as a template at the top of your paper or wherever it's convenient for you. I feel blank because I need blank. And then I'll be quiet for about 3 minutes while you just work on a couple. Do your own translation. I'll leave this needs chart up. I'll make it a little bit bigger to make it easier to see. I feel because I need. About 30 more seconds for this part of the exercise. You can pause for just a moment. I'll give you the next suggestion. So what you're practicing is allowing. That's the, if there's one takeaway for today, this is the one, that when you name and notice your feelings and needs, it's helping you to allow them to be, allowing you to be. So self-empathy leads to self-acceptance and self-compassion. And sometimes we need help. You know, I threw you directly into the deep end by asking you to do this all by yourself, just because I knew you could do it. But that's also sometimes, especially with tricky jackals, it can be helpful to have support. So for 15 minutes, we're going to go back to small groups. And you can either work by yourself, you know, quietly if you want to, in your small group, or you can support each other in translation. Maybe, and I'm guessing it'll be mutually beneficial, that if you support one person in unpacking and translating one jackal, that it'll stimulate creativity and support everybody else in the group in doing that. So that's the task, is go back to your small groups and support each other in translating these jackals into giraffes. And some people have come and gone, so there's changes in the group, and I'll need to add people. So if you end up alone, just stay there for just a moment. And as soon as the groups, as soon as I can, I'll add people to your room. And so I'm going to open the rooms now for 15 minutes. You're still here with me, it means I'm still moving people around. Get you into a group in just a second. See if there's any solos. Okay, down to 12.
Hey, Jim,
Yeah, hang on 1 second, please.
I don't want to be put in a room though.
Who? Harmony? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I got you.
thanks.
Abby. Okay. All right. I am so curious to hear from a few of you, especially if you've not yet spoken today. That's where most of my curiosity, because I'm longing to connect with unheard voices. If you feel moved to share anything, I'd love to hear your experience, but I'm open to hearing all voices. So if anybody would like to share anything about this last piece of linking thoughts with doing this translation work, I'd love to hear it. Just raise your hand so I know who would like to share about it. Yeah, Cecilia, thank you.
Sure. I really appreciate the practice of the translation. I have to say, I honestly quite enjoy the fact that I can share. I have a safe space to share what my jackal is saying with others. There's a lot of shame, I think, that we carry in having these thoughts and knowing that we wouldn't like to have them, but we do anyways. So just having the acceptance and welcoming of people of that kind of shadow part, and the willingness to see the process and see the translation. It feels a wonderful support for the practice in daily life, that I don't need to shame myself for having a jackal which gets in the way of getting to giraffe. So just open-hearted and tender in that way.
Thank you. I'm really glad that you talked about getting some relief from shame, because often in spiritual communities, there is a certain quality of wrongness about thinking. And because of the way we've been educated, when we think something's wrong and then we do it, we tend to feel either guilt or shame. And so when we do this translation work, it supports that process of allowing. This is what human beings do. We judge. We did an IIT, an International Intensive Training in Japan in 2014. And after 10 days of being in this delicious, totally nurturing environment where everyone's doing the best they can to practice nonviolent communication. And so the group of us trainers are sitting on the bus heading back to the airport or wherever we were going. One of the trainers, who had about 10 years more experience than me at the time, she reported that the longer that she does NVC, the more judgmental she becomes. And that was just such a liberating thought, because it's not really that we're becoming more judgmental. It's because we're becoming more aware of the judgments that have been there, and then more allowing and accepting and willing to transform them and to see that they're all pointing to life. And there's just a tragic, as Marshall would call it, a tragic expression of an unmet need. A jackal thought is just a tragic expression of an unmet need. And that's what you all hopefully discovered today as you did this translation work. So thanks for sharing, Cecilia. Anybody else willing to share? Got another few minutes. Love to hear another voice. Yeah, Juliana.
Yeah, so I just realized that my judgments are because my need is not being met. It's not because of your actions or anything of you to do with you. It's my judgments are connected with my needs, which are not being met. And so if I can find that need and focus on that instead of the other person and the judgments, then I can find the 10,000 strategies to meet that need.
Yes.
And be liberated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
When I was new to NVC, well, I guess I was about a 2-year-old trainer when I designed, Dory and I designed this needs mandala. And by then we started gaining some vocabulary in having both the feelings vocabulary and a needs vocabulary. But I don't know what school you went to, but we never talked about feelings and needs. And I went to high school and then I went off to 4 years of college and blah, blah, blah. Never once did they ever talk about feelings and needs. So this is all new to me. I knew a few feelings. I knew the ones that what's that movie, the Pixar movie about feelings? I can't think of the name of it right now, but those 5 basic feelings, happy, sad, glad, mad, and scared. And I knew those, but I certainly didn't know Schadenfreude or Freudenfreude, these really cool German feeling words. And I didn't know dismayed, and I didn't know I didn't know I didn't have words to describe it. And so Jory and I just started, we designed our, before Grok cards were invented, we designed our own feelings and needs cards. And so you can, it's a fun thing to do in your practice group. If you have a practice group, you can design your own feelings and needs cards. And then we took them and we just used business card stock that you can buy at the stationery store, you know, and it's already pre-perforated, but you don't need something so fancy. You can just tear up pieces of paper if you want to. And then we would hide them all over the house. So I would put, and it would be random. So maybe I'd pick the need for sustenance and I'd stick it in the bathroom drawer. Then I'd go to pull out my toothpaste and there's the word sustenance. And it would remind me, oh yeah, I have a need for sustenance. And then maybe I'd run across a feeling word, and it just really supported me in growing my vocabulary of feelings and needs. So I want to encourage you guys to play that kind of a game too.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Jim, I also want to share one more thing. Marshall said that everything we do to meet a need, and even judgments.
Absolutely.
When we judge, we judge to meet a need maybe for protection, self-protection, for discernment, you know. So when you talked about judging more and more, there's nothing, you know, looking at judgments from this positive, in this positive way. And
yeah,
thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yep. Everything we do is in the service of a need. Hard to argue with that. Okay, we're coming down to the last 5 minutes. Anybody else have anything to share?
I can share something.
Yes, please, Elizabeth. Please go ahead.
I just was reflecting. I'm staying with my family while I recover from a serious injury, and there's been a lot of tension in my family in the past, and I just have longed for harmony for years and years. And today it really struck me how the strategies that I consider most appropriate for what harmony could look like are really different now than I was 10 years ago. And so I guess it's reminding me to just stay flexible and to stay creative, but stay conscientious of what truly meeting that need could look like. Because sometimes you can hit your head against the wall over and over, thinking that you're trying to meet your need and like doing the good homework on trying to meet the need. And actually, it's just a stuck pattern that's not really actually ever going to be responding to what you really need met inside. So it was a good reminder today. I'm really thankful.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, Elspeth. And I hope your recovery goes very, very well and that you heal up completely. All right. So let's start doing the wind up. Here's in the chat, I'm going to put a few links. This is our feedback form. So if you haven't spoken up today, or even if you have, and you want to give some feedback to Jory and me, then you can use that form. It's very brief, just a few questions. And that helps us to decide where we go next in the group. Based on the requests and the feedback that we get to find out what's clear and what's not clear and what people are needing. So this is a way for you to express your preferences. And I love that, Rena, holding needs tightly and strategies lightly. Thanks. Okay, and then also Jory loves to do one-on-one work and mediation for that matter. And so if you are longing for a warm and friendly ear, you can make an appointment with Jory using that link on her calendar. That takes you to her calendar, and you can make a half-hour appointment or an hour or something like that. And then you can talk about whatever's on your heart. You can get some one-on-one time, get your questions answered, or get some empathy, or whatever is up for you. Let's see if there's anything else vital to share today. Okay, so we're doing some fundraising. If you were here last week, you got to meet Kirsten Christensen, a trainer from Denmark, and she and her team are building from the ground up a school, an NVC-based school in Kenya. And so we're raising money for this project. And if you would like to donate something, you can donate it to our PayPal account. And I'll make sure that that whatever you donate gets sent on to Kirsten. In fact, I'll double it. Joy and I will double your donation. And so if you gave us $100 to support the building of the school in Kenya, then we'll put in $100 and match your gift. We're trying to raise a few $1,000s to get the ball rolling in Kenya, and we're doing other fundraising in other places. But I'm very proud and pleased with the support you guys have been giving other NVC projects in areas that don't have that kind of access that to resources that many of us have. So this is our opportunity to pay it forward. So please consider that. And you could also give money directly to the Center for Nonviolent Communication, and you can specify in your gift to CNVC that the money you're giving is for this project. And they will, if you're a US citizen, that may entitle you to a tax deduction. So there's the link in the chat for how you can direct a donation to the Center for Nonviolent Communication. And just earmark it, just make a note that it's for the NVC school in Kenya. NVC school in Kenya, and that's probably good enough. And then let me know that you did it so that we can match the donation and celebrate it with you. Next week, Samuel, the certified trainer in Kenya, will be joining us for the last 15 minutes of the call, and he's going to share a little bit about his experience with building that school and what his hopes are. So I hope you guys can come next week to enjoy meeting Samuel. And let's see here. The last thing I want to say is we've pretty much set the stage with self-empathy to start moving into honesty and empathy next week. So we're going to move from deepening the self-connection into deepening connection with those that we care about the most, when conversations really matter. Really inspired by Jay and Carolyn, what Carolyn shared earlier in the call today about using using nonviolent communication to create a field of honesty and empathy and self-empathy in connection with people that you care about. So we're going to be moving more into that over the next weeks, continuing to come back to self-empathy as the ground. So when we feel like we get triggered or lost, that's where we come back to. And hopefully Jory will be back next week. And so with that, I feel complete, and I want to hear from Tanya, and then I'll reopen groups for you guys to go back and hang out with people. Tanya?
I wanted to say that I thought this exercise was executed really well. I love this exercise, and I intend to steal it. I'm just letting you know right now, I'm stealing it. And the guys at the Coyote Ridge Corrections Center will benefit from your pedagogy. So I want to say that. And just totally yay that Sam's going to come. I love him to pieces.
Oh, good. Well, invite your friends to meet Sam, and love to have a warm welcome for him next week. And as for me, for you stealing this, you can't steal what doesn't belong to me, because I already stole it from Marshall. So I got this advice directly from him at the first IIT I ever went, and it saved my life and saved my relationship on more than one occasion. I was looking, maybe I'll find it before next week. I have this incredible Jackal show about a chicken sandwich somewhere from my very early NBC period. That might be fun to share with you. All right, so I'm going to turn the report. Yeah, go ahead, Allison.
Oh, and I think you've said on more than one occasion that Marshall says he stole all the really great stuff from the Buddha.
That's right. Yeah, we all come from a long line of spiritual thieves. And we want to pay it forward and give it away so that you guys can steal it and give it away to somebody else. Okay, so I rearranged groups. They're big groups right now because most people will fall off of the call because you got other things to do. But usually I did this last week and it ended up with 2 or 3 people in a call in the rooms or more. And you guys can just hang out and enjoy each other, maybe set up some more practice and get some questions answered. And I will look forward to seeing you next week. Aloha, everybody. Bye-bye.
Aloha, adios, buenas
Aloha.
noches.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank
God
you
bless
so
you.
much.
Bye.
God bless.
Thank you.